church at me. We went every time the doors were open. Wednesday, Sunday, sometimes Tuesday too. Mama played piano while I sat on the front row, and I met Jesus right there in that pew. It's where I learned to pray and sing Amazing Grace. When they said amen, I didn't want to leave. And even to this day, I still read the old King James. It's how I learned to quote John 3:16. Though I packed up and moved to Tennessee, I can't get that church out of me. Oh, I wonder if those people underneath that steeple know the mark that they left on me. Oh, the man I am today still loves that sacred place. My roots are planted in that memory of where I learned to pray and sing Amazing Grace. When they said amen, I didn't want to leave. And even to this day, I still read the old King James. It's how I learned to quote John 3:16. Though I packed up and I moved to Tennessee, I can't get that church out of me. I hope I never get that church out of me.
Joseph Habedank, The Church.
I'm going home, I'm going home. I can see the lights of heaven and I know it won't be long. There's a band of angels waiting now to sing a welcome song. I'm going home, I'm going home. I'm just passing through, heading for a better land. I'm looking for a city built by God's own hand. I'm living in this world, but my home's beyond the blue. My bags are packed, I'm ready for the move. I'm going home, I'm going home. I can see the lights of heaven and I know it won't be long. There's a band of angels waiting now to sing a welcome song. I'm going home, I'm going home. It could be any day now. I will say goodbye to earthly pain and sorrow and all the cares of life. I've made my reservation. My name is written down. I'll leave it all when that trumpet sound. Yeah, I'm going home. I'm going home. I can see the lights of heaven and I know it won't be long. There's a band of angels waiting now to sing a welcome song. I'm going home. I'm going home. Morning, noon, and night. I just can't wait to take my flight. I just can't wait. I just can't wait to take my flight. I'm going home. I'm going home. I can see the lights of heaven and I know it won't be long. There's a band of angels waiting now to sing a welcome song. I'm going home. I'm going home. I'm going home. I'm going home. Yeah, I can see the lights of heaven and I know it won't be long. There's a band of angels waiting now to sing a welcome song. I'm going home. I'm going home. There's a band of angels waiting now to sing a welcome song. I'm going home. I'm going home.
Ivan Parker. I'm Going Home.
There was a time in my life when I was so low, in a desperate situation, didn't know where to go. So I cried out, Jesus, help me, I can't make it on my own. Then I felt his peace so sweetly, God was moving, my worries gone. Here comes the promise, here comes the joy, here comes the victory, for the battle is the Lord's. You may not understand the reason, but it doesn't matter anymore, 'cause here comes the promise that you've been waiting for. Friend, if you are in a struggle, you don't know what to do, you try to handle it on your own, you feel so tired, you're through. Cast your cares upon the Master, for he cares so much for you. Just give it all to him, for his strength will carry you. Here comes the promise, here comes the joy, here comes the victory, for the battle is the Lord's. You may not understand the reason, but it doesn't matter anymore, 'cause here comes the promise you've been waiting for. Here comes the promise, and here comes the joy, and here comes the victory, for the battle is the Lord's. You may not understand the reason, but it doesn't matter anymore. Here comes the promise, here comes the promise, here comes the promise you've been waiting for. He's a God that's right on time, so keep on holding on tight. Shall renew their strength, they shall take up wings and soar higher than they've ever been. They that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. Here comes the promise you've been waiting for.
8th Street. Here comes the promise.
This is Affirm Southern Gospel Radio.
Hot in here. Yes, it is. Yeah, I think it's warm here. Good morning. When Lois gets done, we'll get started. Well, certainly a beautiful morning, isn't it? It's a good day to be out in God's house, and appreciate everyone that showed up for Sunday school. You take your time. We're fine. How about a spoken prayer request on this side, Ruby?
Do you have my other girls, Jennifer? You have the other girls? Okay.
Okay. Steve? Yes. Okay, Steve. Any others over here? Sis?
I remember learning Georgia Freeman and her sister, our nation, our military, missionaries, law enforcement. And I have two sisters that did theirs.
Any others over here? Scotty?
I see specialists tomorrow.
Okay.
Perfectly out there.
Ronnie?
Continue to remember me and my family, with my two brothers, my daughter Jeannie, my son Jeannie. Remember those Jews one.
Okay.
Remember we.
Yes. Bruce?
Remember Israel in prayer and remember Aaron Moore in prayer.
Okay. Sis, right there.
Dad's not feeling good today, because we get for, speed recovery. Mom's having surgery this week, so make sure to pray for that to come in. Shaylin got a new date for checkout, which is May 27th, but she has to be healed, so let's pray for her.
That's right.
And
Amen.
Rose is traveling today, so let's keep her prayed for.
Okay. Donna, did you have this?
No.
Okay. Any others? Yes, remember our neighbor. He's going through a cancer battle, and Mr. Roberts' his name. Remember him, please. Any others? Let's just remember be mindful of our fellowship today, and just ask God's Spirit to join up with us, and just leave all the distractions and everything outside for a couple hours, and just take in what He has for us today, right? Did you come here seeking a blessing?
Amen.
All right, thank you. That's good. That's good. Ask you to stand, please. Ronnie, could you lead us out this morning? Pray in your own way.
Give us praise to Him. My Lord, we come to you this morning. Thank you for some good Lord, as we come to you, Lord, we pray that the service, Lord, we pray for us, the enemies, we pray for us, Lord, we had your own message, Lord, we just say, God, you touch each and every one, your heart this morning, Lord, you know we're all involved, bless us, Lord. Ones that's in need, Lord, burdens, Lord, just pray, God, to take care of this morning, Lord. Lord, we just pray for our service this morning, pray for our children, Lord, we pray, God, that you just continue to watch over them and take care of them, Lord. And Lord, all of our leaders, Lord, we just pray, God, that you just touch their hearts, Lord. We ask, Lord, that you just lead them in the situation that this country's in, Lord. We pray, God, you just watch over them and take care of them, Lord. All these things we ask in Jesus' precious and holy name. Amen.
Amen. Well, last week Matt took us up to verse 25 in chapter 23 of Matthew. We're lesson 5. This one's called There They Crucified Him. So if we pick up from where Matt left off last week, Jesus has been beaten. He's been mocked. Pilate, remember, could find no fault in him, but he eventually gives him over to the crazed mob. They release Barabbas, who was guilty of sedition and murder, and Pilate gives Jesus over to the mob. Our text picks up in verse 32. But I think we have to, again, I'm going to look at some skip verses. I apologize for that, but the way that our literature's put together, they've skipped a few things, and we're going to touch on them. I always try to stay as close as I can with our book, and sometimes the book has got enough material. Sometimes I feel like they skipped some things, and today they skipped a couple things. We'll talk about them. But at this point, think about what's going on with Jesus. He's utterly exhausted now at this point. He has not eaten anything, obviously, since the night before, where he had the arrest, and where he's in the garden praying. Remember how stressful that was? He prayed so hard that drops of blood began to fall from his face. He was arrested right after that. So there's been no sleep. He spent his night at this arraignment at Caiaphas' house. No sleep there. Add to that the scourging that he took, the beating that he took, the loss of blood. He's dehydrated, you have to say. Now he's got to carry his own cross after the condition he's in right now. He has to carry his own cross. I'm going to read a few verses that we have skipped. I'm going to read 20. We start at 32, but I'm going to read 26 through 31 just real quick. I think it's important that we look at this. And as they led him away, they laid upon him one Simon, a Cyrenian, coming out of the country, and on him they laid the cross that he might bear it after Jesus. And there followed him a great company of people and women which bewailed and lamented him. But Jesus turning unto them and said, Daughters of Jerusalem, weep not for me, but weep for yourselves and for your children. For behold, the days are coming in which they shall say, Blessed are the barren, and the wombs that never bear, and the paps that never gave suck. Then shall they begin to say to the mountains, Fall on us, and to the hills cover us. For if they do these things, a green tree, what will they do in the dry? So I thought it was neat when I read that. I came across a thought I'd never really noticed before, and I want to mention it. First of all, we all know about the story of the man helping Jesus carry the cross. He said he was a Cyrenian, which is modern-day Libya. So here was a guy that wasn't even a local, but he was no doubt there as probably for the Passover. Maybe he was a converted Christian. I don't know his background per se, but he did carry the cross for Jesus. But what struck me was on his way to the cross, he speaks to these women and who are crying for him, it says. And, and think about this. Despite the pain, the turmoil, we've talked about how he must feel right now, having been beaten and scourged and no rest, nothing to drink, nothing to eat. But look what he does. Despite all that pain, he stops and uses an opportunity to teach somebody something, to bring knowledge to people. Even, his own physical condition, he stops and he sees an opportunity to teach. And I thought that was amazing. And he tells these women, he says in this prophecy that he tells them, he said there's coming a day when it will be better off to not even bring children into the world. He says, Daughters of Israel, weep not for me, but weep for yourselves and your children. Some say that he's talking about the great tribulation to come. There's others' thoughts on it, and I believe because he addresses the daughters of Jerusalem, he's talking about something that's going to happen right there, specifically in that region. So, fast forward 70 years. Here's Jesus at the very end of his life, still prophesying, still preaching, still teaching, and here's the message. 70 years later, under Titus, Rome will destroy Jerusalem. Okay? Roman forces will attack the city. They'll be under siege for 5 months. They cut off all transportation. No food, no material can get into the city. The people begin to starve. Surrounded, the thousands will starve. They set fire and destroy the second temple. They kill and enslave thousands. So Bible history has stopped being written at this time, but Josephus, who was a historian, has documented the events that were happening at this time. And he actually wrote, during this siege of the Romans onto Jerusalem, people were starving in Jerusalem, and some mothers ate their children. So think about what Jesus had said 70 years earlier. Weep not for me, daughters of Jerusalem. Weep for yourselves and your children. And sure enough, it played out. It happened. I think that's what Jesus was talking. But just again, Jesus using this opportunity on his way to the cross to teach somebody something and prophesy something. I thought it was pretty neat. Now our text actually starts. So let's read it. I'll read the first verse, you guys read after me. And there were also two others, malefactors, that led with him to be put to death.
And when they were come to the place which is called Calvary, there they crucified him, and malefactors, one on the right hand and the other on the left.
Then said Jesus, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And they parted his raiment and cast lots.
And the people stood beholding, and the rulers also with him directed him, saying, Say to us, let him say to himself, if he be Christ, the chosen of God.
And soldiers also mocked him, coming into him and offering him vinegar.
And saying, Now leave the kingdom of the Jews, save thyself.
And a superscription also was written over him in letters of Greek and Latin and Hebrew, This is the King of the Jews.
And it was about 6 hours, and there was darkness of all the earth till the ninth hour.
And the sun was darkened, and the veil of the temple was rent in the midst.
And when Jesus cried with a loud voice, he said, Father, unto thy hands I commend my spirit. And he said thus, he gave up the ghost.
Now when the centurion saw what was done, he glorified God, saying, Certainly this was a righteous man. So, our first verse that we read there, two malefactors or criminals. Mark addressed them as thieves. And do you know that this was prophesied by Isaiah? In Isaiah 53:12, it says he was numbered with the transgressors. The term crucifixion, do we really know what all that involves? Have we really thought about it? This time of year, we stop and we think about it more often, obviously. We think about what happened, what our Savior went through, and just the means of execution and what it involved back then that the Romans practiced. It says there they crucified him. So let's keep in mind, he's already been scourged, he's been beaten, he's hungry, he's tired, all those things. Now he's going to go through this awful punishment, this execution. So just some things I picked up on. You've got your back is laid open with all the rips and tears from the beating. Now they're going to put you on this rough beam. So those injuries are rubbing up against this beam. They're going to put in the nails into your hands and into your wrists. There's large nerves in your wrists, right? And it's just pain just bolts of pain go up your arms and into your shoulders. It's excruciating. Then they put the spike through your feet, obviously. And so you've got to imagine the condition he was in before all this, and now this is happening. The major effect, you know what the major effect of crucifixion was? Suffocation. And Charles, why is that?
Well, when you're holding yourself up on the cross, and you're sunken down like this, you can't really breathe properly. So in order to lift yourself up, you're pushing on that nail that's through your feet, trying to lift yourself up. Trying to lift your body up with your hands and your feet, you've got nails through them. So ultimately, that's so much pain that you just don't even try. Yeah. You can't breathe.
To get a good breath, you got to go through this major pain.
Yeah.
And at some point, is it really worth it even trying to breathe? So a lot of them just suffocated, like Charles said.
Actually, it was a slow
Yes, very slow. Yeah.
suffocation. Even without the nails, you
'Cause,
suffocated fast. It was
our nature is to fight it as long as we possibly can, and we would, but at some point, it just.
So there was another way to crucify, and it didn't involve nails. They would actually just tie their hands and their feet to the cross, and that could take up to 7 days.
Wow.
It's also a suffocation process.
Wow. So imagine things like insects, right? Or the open wombs, birds picking at wounds. I mean, like in Charles said, for some cases days this could happen, depending on how they did it. And like Richard said, it's a slow, agonizing death.
Well, beyond that, you had sunburn.
Yeah. You're exposed to all the elements. Yeah, you don't know.
You've got the flies and the bees and the mosquitoes and birds and everything landing on you, and you can't do nothing about it. You're just suffering. It's horrible.
Can I,
Yeah.
also, there's another verse in the Bible, a friend of mine has a podcast, and I was listening to it this morning. And, the, vinegar that they try to give us, vinegary wine, and they put myrrh in it to try and, they give it to him so they're, for pain,
Yeah.
but he refused it.
Yeah.
So he wanted the full,
Yeah. He refused it.
really, he didn't want that,
He bore the whole
yeah.
cost of it all, all the pain. He didn't opt for the relief.
They have to die by the Sabbath, right? As in that, as when they, pierce them.
Yeah. I believe.
You can't go past the Sabbath, I don't think.
So when they die, you can't leave them on the cross on the Sabbath, is how that works.
So, you could die, and others did, from blood loss, suffocation, which was the major thing, dehydration, heart attack. And if the victim would not die quick enough, what would they do?
Break the leg.
They would break their legs. That way, they would put more tension on the.
You're definitely not losing.
Yeah, now you can't breathe. You're basic, so to ensure that the person did die at the adequate time, they would resort to that measure, break the legs.
Now, depending on the constitution of the person, they may not die quickly, but they might go into shock.
Yeah. So, crucifixion, the word crucifixion, I didn't know this till I started this lesson. We get our English word excruciating from the Roman word that translates out of the cross. That was interesting. Verse 34. And he said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And they parted his raiment and cast lots. The love of Jesus never fails, does it? Right there, think about this. On the cross, he's praying for his executioners. Right here. Asking his Father not to hold this against them. In this example, he fulfills his own commandment that he left us in Matthew 5:44. Love your enemies, bless those who curse you, do good for those that hate you, and pray for those who spitefully use you and persecute you. It's amazing, isn't it?
You gotta think of the field day Satan was having at this time.
Yeah.
Take this picture. You've got Jesus hanging on the cross fighting for his life. And right down on the ground in front of him, you've got these people gambling, casting lots for his garments right in front of him.
Yeah.
And in the midst of all of it, Jesus prays for them.
Yeah.
Satan is having a field day with it.
Yeah.
But by Jesus praying that for them, that's a great light in a dark time.
Yeah. I know, yes, Richard.
I'm asking a question. When he said, forgive them, they don't know what they're doing, was he talking just about the soldiers crucifying, or all of us in the future?
Well, I think it applies to both, I really do, because the result of this happening, we all have forgiveness for the rest of, until he returns, right?
I mean, it's just like Charles said, if nobody else was around, he was still forgiven.
Yeah.
I was still forgiven.
Yeah.
So, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing, so was that the prayer of forgiveness that really tied the knot and clinched it for all of us and forgiven through the crucifixion?
Yeah. I'm not sure. I think he's talking about those that are killing him, but as a result, we're all forgiven, because of what he went through. They gambled for his clothing. The very last thing he owned, they took from him, you know. And again, and then 2 Corinthians, there's something about that. Verse 9 of chapter 8. For your sakes he became poor, that through his poverty we might become rich. He had nothing, did he, at the end? And casting lots, I think that, is that where a lot of people get their anti-gambling belief? You know, I don't know how you feel about gambling. I know that it has ruined, I know personally a few people that have been ruined by it, okay? And so we need to be careful there with that, don't we? It's another tool that the devil uses, isn't it? 35, and the people stood beholding, and the rulers also them derided him, saying, he saved others, let him save himself, if he be Christ, the chosen of God. Derided him. That means to laugh at him, to be with contempt, to scorn, to ridicule. They made the quote, he saved others, let him save himself. Isn't that so, the irony of that statement right there? He stays on this cross so that he can save others, right? So that we could be saved. In verse 36 and 37, even the soldiers are joining in to the mockery as he's praying for them to Father, forgive them. So we find out, too, that there's this superscription, or a sign, if you will. And it was customary back in the day when someone was being crucified, they would make a sign, or they called it a titulus. And it was carried in front of the criminal, or sometimes they put it on a chain and put it around his neck, and it hung off him. And it would have, you know, it would say what he done or what he was guilty of, and for the execution, and they would hang it on the cross. And as a final insult, if you will, this superscription, verse 37 says, it was written over him in letters of Greek, Latin, and Hebrews, this is the King of the Jews. So Pilate, as a final insult, makes this sign up, and he has it prepared for Jesus in 3 languages so that everyone there would know what it said. So everyone there would know who he was. And he had wrote, King of the Jews. Well, in John chapter 19, verse 21, we find out that the religious leaders of the day were not happy about this. They objected to this title because they felt honestly that Jesus was not the King of the Jews, right? And so they complained about it. Here they are again. They're getting what they want, right? They're seeing Jesus be killed. That's what they wanted all along. And they're still not happy. They're still complaining here. But anyway, they object to Pilate about you calling him the King of the Jews. That's not right. And they also thought it was demeaning that the Roman government would have that kind of power, if that was their king, that they could kill him. And so Pilate says, no, I'm not changing. Let's see, where's the verse at? Chapter 19 of John, verse 22, he answered, I have written what I have written. In other words, be quiet. This is what's going on here. He's going to have this sign. Yeah, Richard.
Well, one thing crossed my mind when they were casting lots for his garments, with everything he was going through, I just wonder how important that would have been to him. You know, he's in pain, he's suffering, everything he's going through, and the idea that, you know, they're out down there trying to debate on who's going to get his clothes, really could have been that important on his mind.
No, not on his
mind. The sign over his head, which he couldn't see, I don't think was so much as an insult to him, but as an insult to the Jews, because they couldn't do their own dirty work, and they made the Romans do it. So that's why he put that up there just as a last thing.
That's what I
This
think.
is what he claimed to be. Let's put that title over his head as like a mockery, not actually proclaiming him as King of the Jews, but like as a joke.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, too, how ironic this is. Pilate has this put up there in 3 languages so that everybody,
No mistake.
no mistake, everyone there would know and be able to know who that was.
But
Okay.
it was the Jews that got the biggest insult out of that thing.
But you know what's so ironic about it? There's going to come a time when he comes back and everyone's going to know who he is. So I think there's the connection, right? There's not going to be, when he comes back the next time, he is going to be king over the universe, judge over everybody, and every knee will bow, right? So that's pretty neat. Yeah, Pilate, making fun of him in a sense. Well, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord, right?
You know, Tim, not a lot's changed. There's still a lot of Jewish people that don't see Jesus for who he was. When I was in Baltimore working a few weeks back, it surprised me. That area up there's a big melting pot for a lot of different parts of the world. And there's a lot of Jewish people there. And they actually have temples and stuff where they still go and worship and do stuff that you see in the Bible that they did. I spoke with a couple people that I delivered product to, and they would tell me that they had to leave. They were leaving because they were going to the temple, and kind of confused me. But then I was driving down the road, and I saw this place called Temple Isaiah in Columbia, Maryland, and they were all gathering with their head coverings and everything. And it's sad that people still think that they've got to do all that to get to God.
Yeah. Yep. Got to go through the ceremony, huh?
Yeah.
I think an even bigger picture, has a bigger impact on me is the fact that these people crucified him, but yet he was there for them too,
Yeah.
in their salvation.
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
free them from the very sin that they were committing, and hits home a little different.
Yeah. We skip a few verses again, and it's about a criminal on the cross that finds salvation. And I just want to read them real quick, 39 through 43 that were skipped. I apologize, but I think we need to look at this. There's some key points. And one of the malefactors which were hanged railed on him, saying, If thou be Christ, save thyself and us. And the other answering rebuked him, saying, Dost not thou fear God, seeing that thou art in the same condemnation, and he indeed justly, for we receive the due reward for our deeds, but this man hath done nothing amiss. And he said unto Jesus, Lord, remember me when thou comest into thy kingdom. And Jesus said unto him, Verily I say unto thee, today shalt thou be with me in paradise. We all know that. We've all heard that before. We're familiar with that, with the one thief on the cross who found out who Christ really was. But I just wanted to touch on it. This one criminal, think about it, he joins in the mockery with the mob. Well, he's hanging there. He's just like everyone else there that are making fun of him. If you're, God save us, and save yourself. So he's no different than the rest of the people that are scorning and making fun of Jesus. But the second criminal begins to see things a little differently. And he rebukes the other criminal and says, Do you not fear God? He saw who Christ was. He saw Jesus. He said, This man has done nothing wrong. And what I want to get to, my whole point I want to make here, he calls out to Jesus. He said, Lord, he believes at this point who Jesus is. And he says, Remember me when thou comest into thy kingdom. And Jesus said, Today you'll be with me in paradise. So I think a couple of neat things I want to just hit on these skip verses is this. This man appears to be the first who believed in the intercession of Christ, right? Is that we think so? Secondly, we see an amazing picture of grace, God's grace here, and great reward. This thief, he only asked Jesus, remember me when you get to your kingdom. He gets much more than that. He gets paradise. Are we receiving more than we deserve to by the grace of God? Yeah. I mean, he just said, remember me. You know, now this man is going to die in peace, right? Because he knows. And what awaits him is far more than what he was asking Jesus for. He said, just remember me when you get to your kingdom. Jesus says, you're going to get more than that. You're going to be with me in paradise. Now, how cool is that, right? Do we have that same opportunity?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we do. Richard, do you have something?
Well, you said he was the first, and that kind of made me question, where Jesus had already been out teaching and preaching and converting, was he actually the first?
He was the first.
Because there were others that, believed in him when
Yeah.
lady touched the hem of his garment, and
There was.
he healed people, and they believed in him at that point.
And Jesus even told him, no one comes to the Father but through me. I know that. But this is the first one that actually will make it because of Jesus' death, right? And believing who Jesus was. And what, so maybe I should have been a little more specific there.
So Tim, this is one of my favorite passages of scripture. I don't know if I'm coming unglued sitting here as we're going through this, but what I love about this is, in spite of the agony and the suffering and everything that Jesus is going through at this time, he still saw the need of this man.
Yeah.
He put himself to the
Yeah.
side and saw the need of this man.
Yeah, yeah. It's amazing.
Hey, Tim, I'll share something with you out of the Gospel of
Sure.
Matthew, here on resurrection. This is Matthew chapter 27, and I'm going to start here at verse 47. Some of them that stood there when they heard that said, this man calleth for Elijah. And straight one of them ran and took a sponge and filled it with vinegar and put it on and gave him to drink. The rest said, let us see whether Elijah will come and save him. Jesus, when he cried again with a loud voice, yielded up the ghost. And behold, the veil of the temple was rent in twine from top to bottom, and the earth did quake, and the rocks rent. And the graves were opened, and many bodies of the saints that slept arose and came out of the graves after his resurrection, and went into the holy city and appeared unto many. That's something there, Matthew makes us even the
Yeah.
graves is open tonight.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you, Bruce.
You're welcome.
So now we go back to our text in your book, and verse 44 and 45. Just before Christ dies, we see a couple, or as he's dying, we see a couple supernatural events that happen here. Verse 44, and it was about the 6th hour, and there was a darkness over the earth until the 9th hour. So Jesus was placed on the cross at about the 3rd hour, or 9 a.m., the way that they keep record. So from 12 o'clock to 3 o'clock, or from the 6th hour to the 9th hour, there was this total darkness over all the earth. Not just in that vicinity, but over all the earth, we're told. So the length of the darkness, and there was, we know, but based on that time of the year where the sun and the moon are situated in the solar system, there's no way it could have been an eclipse, okay? It couldn't have been that. What was that? What do you think that was?
God turned his back.
What was that?
God turned his back on Jesus.
God turned his back on Jesus. Yeah. I read that, and also read that the agony of all creation was shown there. Also, from a secular writing and historical perspective, it's archived. A Roman historian wrote at about that time that there was a day that turned to night, so much that the stars were visible and followed by an earthquake. So that was documented. That's from a historical perspective. Interesting, isn't it?
There's another story about today in the Old Testament, where the sun shone directly overhead for a whole day and didn't go down. God had stopped time, to rotate for the armies of Israel, and it says about there that there's never a day like it ever again or ever will be, Then there's another story of the day the time went backwards 10 degrees. The shadow went back 10 degrees.
Yeah. Verse 45 is the other supernatural event that happens here. And the sun was darkened, and the veil of the temple was rent in the midst. What is the importance of the tearing of the veil in the temple? Why is that important? What's happened here as a result of Christ's?
It made it available to the common man rather than just to the high priests.
Yeah, exactly. So, in the temple, there's a veil that separated the holies of holies from the holy place. The separation or tearing of the veil, as Richard says, is a sign that through Christ's death, now there is access for us directly, individually, without fear. Also, I think too, we should never ever think again that God only dwells in temples made by hands. Okay? The access is widespread, right? He's everywhere. That's pretty neat, isn't it? Like,
Imagine standing there when that happened.
yeah,
When that veil rent too.
yeah.
I think that would have been scary. And it probably wasn't a real slow rip either. I don't know.
That high priest, there was still somebody there. Someone had to be there. Even with all this going on outside, there had to be somebody there. I bet he became a believer.
Start looking around at who did that,
Yeah.
Again, he did it in such a way that people couldn't misinterpret it because it didn't tear from the top down where the hangers were. It tore from the bottom up where it was loose,
Yeah.
no tension.
Yeah. Neat, isn't it? Neat. Verse 46. And when Jesus had cried out with a loud voice, he said, Father, into thy hands I commend my spirit. And having said thus, he gave up the ghost. So this horrible suffering that we talked about, it's over now. He drank that cup. Remember from the previous lesson, he talked about the cup. He drinks the cup of God's wrath so that we would not have to. Father, into thy hands I commend my spirit. I think it's important for us, and we might overlook this point when we think about this time. The fact that he could raise his voice and say anything at this point proves that he's still in control. Right? He's still in control here. He gave up it was his choice. He died the way he wanted to and at the time he wanted to. No one took his life. He gave it. His work on the cross is complete. He gave up his life how and when he wanted. So when we think about that, don't look at Jesus with pity as a victim. Look at him as a conqueror that we should admire, right? Because that's what he done.
He chose.
He chose.
Like Luke said, we're fighting a battle from a position of victory.
Yep.
That's where he put us right there at that point.
So here's another, and I like how they end our text here with this, again, we see a witness that's there, a Gentile. Verse 47, and when the centurion saw what was done, he glorified God, saying, certainly this was a righteous man. Now, this Roman centurion, he's a big tough guy, right? He's seen a lot of crucifixions, if this is an area that he's appointed to, right? But there was something special about this one, wasn't there? And he saw it. He'd no doubt witnessed many, many crucifixions. But he became a believer he said this man was so remarkable enough. He saw something in Jesus that he became a believer. And I think, too, that when we think about the Roman centurion looking up at Jesus on the cross and believing, it's right in line with Jesus' prophecy mentioned in John 12:32. He said, when I am lifted up, referring to his crucifixion, from the earth will draw all men unto me. There it was.
Yeah.
And the centurion was an example of that playing out. You know, there's a lot here. We could go down a lot of different avenues discussing this, and I'm just going to make it, I'm not going to do that because draw your own conclusion. I want to say this. Something that did come to me personally, and I thought of in this, studying for this and preparing for it. Don't look at Jesus with pity. What we need to pity is those who will not preach the cross. There's a lot of people, a lot of churches, a lot of preachers that dodge this, okay? They don't preach it. 1 Corinthians 1:23, Paul said, at the very center of the Christian message are his words, we preach Christ crucified. A lot of people don't do it. They want to avoid it. It's too nasty. It's too judgmental. So what are some reasons for neglecting teaching and preaching the cross? I come up with a few. Some would rather preach feel-good prosperity religion. Okay? Self-help messages that make folks feel comfortable. Keeps folks coming back. Keeps that money rolling in too, don't it? Another reason for neglecting to preach the cross is to avoid judgment. The cross directly addresses the necessity of atonement for sin, right?
Yeah.
Oh, don't talk about sin in our church. You're going to lose people. Be careful there, preacher. If anyone leaves, Luke, it's not my fault.
I mean, I think you're on the right track there because the Bible says that there will be many that come to me saying, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in thy name and done many wonderful works? What's the best way to control the church? If the pastor's not preaching the cross, people aren't coming to Jesus because that's the only way to heaven.
Exactly. That's the one thing that separates the saved from the unsaved, right? Is the cross.
Yeah.
We ought to hear more about it.
I don't want to offend anyone, so if I do, I apologize in advance. But even today, a lot of people wear ornamental jewelry, whether earrings, necklace, whatever. And rather than wear the cross, they wear with Jesus still on the cross.
Yeah.
He came down. He's not on the cross anymore. It's the cross that we should celebrate, but to still have him crucified, even in an ornamental way, is like going backwards.
And yes, ma'am, go ahead.
That was my thought when we put the cross out this year, to put the purple at the bottom, because he's not. That's just a symbolization, but he rose.
Yeah, that's
And
right.
that's why
Amen.
it's white, because we have victory.
From a previous lesson, we've had this discussion in other lessons leading up to this one, but I think it's another reason why the cross is not preached about much, is there's too much of this works-based righteousness out there,
Yeah.
right? And I think that the cross doesn't get spoken enough because they would rather put their dependence on what they've done, right, than what the cross represents.
That's probably the main distractant on how to truly get saved, is salvation by works.
And another thing is lack of training. There's people out here that don't know any better, you know? There's been generations now, you know, that have spawned this belief in others, and it's not being taught. So that's probably another reason why you don't hear it preached that much.
My dad was
It's
Sunday-
foreign to them, almost.
I gave a Sunday school teacher years ago, he told me, as a little boy, he said, son, we gotta study to show ourselves
Yeah,
approved.
that's right. Well, sin has a price, don't it? And no sin will make it into heaven, so, and Jesus paid it all, like the song says. Anybody have anything else? I'm done.
Real quick, too, I don't mean to talk so much, but back to this Roman centurion, when he admitted, when he said, truly this was the Son of God, that's also another picture of our Christian life. When he declared that, I'm sure, number one, he probably lost his job.
Probably.
If not his life.
Probably had to, I mean, when you stand for Christ and when you declare Jesus as who he is, you're gonna lose a lot in this world.
Yeah. Well, and you know what?